Hello and welcome to this episode of Hospitality Talks. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by Dom Collingwood, the co-founder of FANZO, the artist normally known as MatchPint, who has joined me to talk about a new project, a new research report that we have launched in conjunction with FANZO called The Power of Sport. Dom, for anybody out there who doesn't know you, would you please just do a brief introduction?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Katie. Wonderful to be here. So FANZO is a platform that brings fans together to create their unforgettable sporting memories, which, as far as we're concerned, is surrounded by friends watching the matches that they want to watch in pubs, bars, restaurants all around the world. If you can't make it to Wembley, Twickenham, the stadium in Melbourne, you want to come together and enjoy sport at its very best, which is in the greatest pubs, bars and restaurants that this fine globe has to offer.
I absolutely agree. And actually somebody said something the other day, said you don't want to watch a historical sporting moment on your own, on your sofa. And I have done that before, because I do remember a tennis match that I was incredibly interested in, being so excited about it. Nowhere was showing it. I watched it at home and it was just like, at the end I was like, oh, yeah, great. Anyway, moving on, Power of Sport, which is our damn good, if I do say so myself, research report that we've worked on together. Why is sport so powerful?
I think you've just hit the nail on the head with your comment about watching tennis by yourself. We have the great fortune at FANZO beginning just about every conversation we have, whether it's with pub partners or whether it's with brand collaborators, you know, to ask the question at the beginning of every meeting, what's your favorite sporting memory? And not a single person says, oh, you know what, I was sat at home on my sofa with a can of beer and a handful of nuts when the most amazing sporting moment happened and it's etched in my memory. You know, that is not what happens. And there's a kind of nerdy scientific bit to this, which is all about mirror neurons and empathy, and how when we're watching sport, we feel the pain and the excitement and the jubilation of the participants. So, you know, when you think about a big tackle going in football, you know, often we recoil and we go, ooh, or we go, you know, we make a noise as if we felt the tackle. We felt Lucy Bronze come and take our legs out from underneath it. So we feel that, we respond. When we're surrounded by other people, we're not only feeding off the energy and the empathy that we're feeling with the footballers or the rugby players or the tennis stars, we're also feeding off the energy and the empathy that we're sharing in the room. Our mirror neurons are open. So in that moment, we are relating to the hope, the expectation, the fear, the desolation that our fellow fans, families, friends around us are also feeling. So that's why when in 2018, Eric Dyer's penalty hits the back of the net against Colombia and everyone literally rises up and there's beer on the ceiling and there's people on top of buses, there's people climbing what they think is Kilimanjaro, but actually it's just a lamppost. The reason for that is that we're not just feeling that, we understand what it is like to feel hope. We understand what it is like to feel as if our dreams have been realized. And in that one moment, it doesn't matter whether or not you're leave or remain, whether you're left or right, Chelsea, Arsenal, you're just all in there and you know what it feels like to not just be an England fan, but to be human and to have those fears and those hopes and those dreams. So the power of sport, you know, really is about its ability to genuinely bring people together. And over the last 2 years, when we've all been as far from together as we could possibly be, I mean, kind of in the flesh, sport is this amazing vehicle to bring us back together. And we saw that with the Euros last year. We've seen it with the Six Nations this year. We will see it with the Women's Euros this summer. We'll see it with the Men's World Cup this winter. The power of sport to bring people together. And really coming back to that question that I ask when we start meetings, you know, what's your favorite sporting moment? There are three factors that come in. You know, number one, it's live. People don't jump off their sofa when they're watching a repeat. No. Number two, it's shared. You know, it is there, it's with other people. I'm sharing my emotions. And then number three, and this is the key bit really for the entree, is it's in person. You know, yes, it's brilliant that we've had these Zoom watch-alongs and we've got live WhatsApp threads that are going. It's not the same as actually rubbing up against people and feeling that that energy, those mirror neurons opening out and all jumping off our seats or crashing down on the table when our team loses. And so, you know, that is the opportunity, that's the power of sport, to bring people together and make them feel alive.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. I think, you know, last summer I watched every England game in a pub or bar with both of my stepsons. I'm actually tearing up a bit thinking about it, with both of my stepsons, which was wonderful because we don't get a lot of time with them because they're off at uni and all that kind of stuff. And it was literally the four of us, and plus a load of their freeloading mates, which is we were buying drinks for every time. And it was just wonderful. And we would come home at the end of the day and we'd bring them and all their friends with us, because we'd be like, we don't want to stop the party. Like everyone's, you know, the sort of the adrenaline and just the feeling of love that was going through us is great. So yeah, I fully understand that. From a business point of view, then, what's the opportunity for the on-trade going forward?
Well, I think that's really what is so exciting and encouraging about this report, which is that, you know, I think there's been a bit of trepidation and a bit of anxiety and some nervousness throughout the trade about what does sport look like in a post-COVID world. You know, we've obviously had a really, really shit last 2 years. Sorry for my language, but
absolutely fine. This is swearing is allowed. You're not live on BBC.
It's been really tough, and people have been really selective from a consumer perspective about when they've been going to trade. And actually, you know, it hasn't been the frequent sporting occasions. You know, it's actually just been getting back into the pub and just enjoying drinks with friends and dinner and people that we haven't been able to connect with for a long time. And as we're beginning to kind of, I guess, settle into what might be whatever the new normal is, we're starting to see what the trends are. And sport very clearly is a big part of that. So some of the things that come out of this report that are really, really encouraging, you know, since the pandemic, sports fans that we spoke to, I think over 1,000 in terms of a national rep survey and about 400 specific sports fans for this. Sports fans are going to a pub to watch sport once a week. So the frequency is really, really high. Doesn't mean they're always coming to your pub. You know, there's an interesting bit in the research that most sports fans have as it were, a portfolio of about 3 pubs that they go to. So there might be one pub that I want to go to for football. There might be one that I want to go to for women's rugby. There might be another one that I want to go to for tennis or whatever.
And but that's actually much lower. So they are much more loyal than the average pub goer, because I think the average pub goer has a repertoire of about 5. So actually, it makes them valuable, because once you're on their rota, so to speak, you're probably going to stay there.
Absolutely. So, you know, very, very loyal, you know, high visit frequency, strong loyalty, big spenders. You know, it's quite a long period. You know, I mean, even if you're just coming in to watch one match, and here we're obviously talking about football and rugby predominantly, but, you know, we could be talking about anything else. You know, you've got a dwell time of at least 2 hours. Yeah. And actually, for bigger games where, you know, a lot of venues insist on early bookings and people want to celebrate afterwards, you're looking at 3-4 hours. So it's no surprise that even though this is a nationally representative survey, it's not just linked to London, which, you know, I understand has a different kind of, or certainly on the evidence of the cost of my pints last night, it has a slightly different economy, but it's a really, really strong average spend. So about £29 per person in terms of a sports visit. That's different to someone standing at the bar watching the horse racing for 5 minutes. You know, I'm going to the pub to watch sport. About £29.
That is the event that I'm there for. That's the occasion and the mission that I'm on. Yeah,
exactly. And the thing that's really encouraging is that, and really exciting, is the social factor. You know, you come, the average group size for a sports occasion in the on-trade is 4. Yeah. You're not only attracting one person, you're attracting their friends. Those friends then might have different sporting interests or non-sporting interests. You know, those 3 friends might say, well, actually, just going for dinner with my mates is a big part of my weekly social rhythm. And actually, oh yeah, I had a great meal while watching the rugby in that pub, I'm going to go back there for dinner. Or I had a really, really great experience and I really enjoyed the drinks offering when we were in there watching tennis recently. Let's go back in there for some drinks on the sunny Thursday evening in July. So it's a really, really valuable consumer. It's a really valuable occasion. And those that really want to lean into it and make it part of their offering, I think are going to really, really benefit from that commercial perspective over the coming year.
Yeah, and I think, you know, from what I've seen of the report, of which I have had a good look through, and I mean it's full of insight, and there will be a link down there for anyone that wants to download it. But I also see there's quite a lot of opportunity there. I mean, one of the things that really stood out to me was the opportunity for families, because I just don't think that we do sports for families in pubs that well at the moment, but of course they're high spending individuals as well, right? So high spending groups, I should say. So there's a real opportunity there. What are the other opportunities within sport? And I'm specifically thinking of, say, women's sport, for example, because obviously that's a topic close to my heart and to a lot of the women at CAM. You know, this year we are all going to be encouraging everyone we know to go and watch the women's Euros. But, you know, what else is the opportunity there?
There's some amazing opportunities around women's sport, and it is such an exciting time for women's sport. I mean, thinking back to last year, one of the biggest sports stories in the world, certainly in the UK, was Emma Raducanu's run to win her first Grand Slam. So you've got really, really great interest in tennis. The Cricket World Cup that we've just finished has been absolutely amazing. Obviously not right for our own time zone, but you've got loads of amazing women's cricket coming up over the next year. You mentioned the women's Euros, huge opportunity, and it's an opportunity that is at risk of being missed, because I think what this report shows that, look, clearly let's not pretend it's something it's not. No. You know, the women's Euros, when you walk into a pub, it is not going to be like going in and watching a men's World Cup game in November. It's not going to be 200 people throwing beer on the ceiling and people queuing 5 deep at the bar. It isn't going to be.
That might make for a better experience for some people, you know.
For sure.
That's where the families are going to come in.
But there is a really, really strong audience. So I think men's FIFA World Cup, we're looking at about 17 or 18 million people expected to watch at least one game in the pub.
Right.
Women's Euros, 8.8 million. That's a lot of people.
That's nearly half. So yeah,
exactly. It's a really, really big audience. And I think the thing that is really, really striking in this report, there's some really brilliant stuff that you guys have done, not just around what the consumer audience is looking at, but also how publicans and how the trade is preparing. The thing that really sticks out to me is, while you've got 8.8 million people that are interested in watching one of the women's Euros games in a pub this summer, only 18% of publicans that spoke to us for this survey said that they are planning anything around women's sport this year. So you've got exactly the kind of stark statistics that you're talking about there. You've got 50% of the potential audience, but only 20% of the trade are actually thinking about making the bargain of it. So, you know, there's a huge opportunity, and those that really go after it and go after it early will be the ones that win big. And it's about setting your sight on the right thing. You know, we've often talked about this, not just with women's sport, but with things like NFL, with things like tennis. There's a kind of weird expectation that we have in our heads that if sport is successful, it must be a completely rammed pub of 100 people. And what we forget is that 5 people in watching Women's Super League in March is more than no people. And that 5 people very quickly becomes 10 people. And you've got these amazing, young, ambitious girls who want to be able to go to the pub in a family environment and watch the game with their mum and dad and say, oh yeah, I really want to go and experience that. And those are the people that are going to be saying to their mum and dad in the summer, please can we go back to the Sheephaven Bay, or please can we go back to the Dog and Duck in the summer. And
they are also the people that are going to be the next superstars of the various different England's women's teams, because if you can't see it, you can't be it. I'm desperately trying not to do a feminist eye roll right now, Dom. But the other point that I wanted to make about that is, we need to sometimes look at this as though it was retail. Okay, so if I run a convenience store in my local town, I know my biggest seller is Cadbury's. Does that mean I don't stock anything else? No, I don't. You know, you've got to have a variety of things going on, and you've got to be able to cater for all the different people that you want to attract into your venue. And we, you know, let's not forget as well that the younger generation are much more engaged in things like women's football and NFL, etc. And they are the customers of the future. So if we're not making them happy now, they're not going to be coming back to pubs and bars. They're going to be going to the experiential places. They're going to be staying at home with their mates. So we need to make sure that we're future-proofing our business by giving that variety and that option and that choice, in my mind.
Well, I just give you, you know, so we come to, I mean, obviously we could talk for hours on this, but a really, really stark stat that I think really supports what you're saying there, Katie, which is, I'm sure there will be other operators out there watching this and listening to this and thinking like, that's all very well, talking about the future fan or the future customer, but I've got a P&L right now that needs to be filled. So here's the most extraordinary stat. Looking at sales data across sport over the last 5 years, 43% of sales, incremental sales during sport, come during Premier League football. Now, that is a really big number, don't get me wrong, right? But I would imagine that a huge number of publicans, of licensees, and so when they're asked, and we see this in the research, why is it that you have a Sky subscription or a BT subscription? Oh, well, it's for Premier League football. Well, let's think about it like this. 43%. So if you buy a BT or a Sky subscription, and all that you do is show Premier League football, it's the equivalent of you buying a keg of beer, selling the first 35 pints, and then chucking the other 53 in the bin.
Yeah.
Now, we would never, ever
like that.
do that with beer.
Yeah.
We would never do that with beer. We'd never do it with food. And yet we're doing it with our TV screens and all of this amazing sports content all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a slow Tuesday afternoon. Do we suddenly turn off all the taps? No.
Yeah.
And yet we go, oh no, we're not going to show that. We're not going to show Wimbledon because only 3 people are going to come in for it. We wouldn't close the pub if only 3 people were in Tuesday afternoon. And yet that's what we do with our screens. You're
so right, Dominic. I'm going to have to stop us there because, as you said, we could talk about this forever. And actually, I'm going to walk away from this chat feeling quite energized about sport and go and see what's on in my local pub over the next few weeks, because it's really made me think that, yeah, I want that feeling that I had last summer with my kids again. And yeah, I think that's exactly right. And it's what a great opportunity for our industry. Dominic, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to speak to you. Anyone out there that wants the report, there'll be a link down there. Thank you.